Jara's eyes flutter open as the blinding light of the alien sun stings her corneas. The barren world stretches out in every direction, an endless desert of jagged rocks and deep, dusty ravines. She feels the cold metal beneath her, the sharp contrast to the blistering heat outside. Her fingers trace the edge of the wreckage, her ship, or what's left of it. Smoke rises in the distance from the twisted metal that was once her means of escape. The mission had started so perfectly. It was supposed to be a simple rescue operation, a routine task to help guide a research team back to their base after a failed experiment. But the crash was more than anyone could have anticipated. The ship malfunctioned, a freak accident that nobody saw coming. Panic had set in and fear spread quickly through the crew. Everyone turned on each other. Jara had barely managed to get out of the wreckage alive. She wipes the sweat from her brow, but it mixes with the tears she's trying to hold back. Her crew had left. They had abandoned her. They took the last shuttle and left her behind, alone on this alien planet without a second thought. No one had even tried to contact her, no attempts at rescue. They were gone. All of them. No sign of their ship, no trace of their footsteps. The vast silence of the planet was deafening. Jara sits up, her body aching from the crash. She looks at the wreckage of her ship. It had been a state-of-the-art vessel, equipped for deep space travel. Now it was nothing more than a pile of twisted metal and broken dreams. She knew she couldn't stay here. She had to find shelter, something, anything that could protect her from the elements. But where could she go? The planet was a wasteland, a barren landscape that seemed endless. She stood, clutching onto the wreckage for support, her legs trembling beneath her. A sudden gust of wind kicks up the dust, stinging her eyes, but it's the sound that catches her attention. At first, she thinks it's just the wind playing tricks on her, but then it comes again. A faint, distant hum, like the soft whir of machinery. Her heart skips a beat. Could it be? She quickly scans the horizon, her breath shallow with anxiety. There is no sign of anyone, no movement. Only the still, silent land. The hum grows louder. She stands frozen, unable to move. Her mind races. Who else could be here? She had been abandoned. Her team had left, and yet this sound, this hum, is something entirely different. It is mechanical. A ship, perhaps? Another rescue team? Jara stumbles forward, her body screaming for rest. But she has no time. She needs answers. She has to find out what's making that noise. Her heart pounds in her chest as she trudges forward, her legs feeling like lead with every step. The desolation around her seems to stretch on forever. She feels like a tiny speck in the middle of this vast, empty world. And then, as she walks, something happens that makes her stop dead in her tracks. The wind stops. The noise stops. Everything goes quiet. Jara freezes, her breath caught in her throat. It's as though the world itself has paused. She looks around, trying to make sense of the sudden silence. Was it a trick of her mind? Was the isolation getting to her? But then, just as suddenly, she hears it, a whisper, a faint, barely audible sound like a voice on the wind. It's not the hum she had been hearing earlier. No, this is something different. A voice calling her name. Her pulse races. Her name is unmistakable. Whispered, in a way that no human would say it, with a strange accent and alien tone. Jara's stomach drops. Could it be? Her hands tremble as she pulls out the emergency beacon from her belt. She's been trying to activate it for hours, but it was useless. The crash had damaged its signal. Still, she holds it up, hoping against hope that somehow someone would hear her. But nothing. Silence. Jara. This time, the voice is clear, undeniable, and it seems to come from everywhere at once. It isn't just in her ears. It's in her mind. The words feel too real. Too close. She spins around, eyes wide, looking for the source of the voice. Nothing. Just the endless landscape. Yet, the voice continues. You are not alone. Jara's breath catches in her throat. The voice. It's not from the ship. It's not from any human. It's something else. Her body tenses, her heart pounding harder now as she realizes she's not just hearing things. There's someone, or something, here with her. She starts to back away, her legs shaky as fear sets in. The voice doesn't stop. It continues, soft, distant, yet so clear. Something inside her urges her to move, to get away from whatever it is. She turns, taking a step forward, but then she stops again. There, at the edge of the wreckage, she spots something that makes her freeze. Footprints, fresh ones. The tracks are small but distinct, leading away from the wreckage, as if someone had been standing there, watching her. She follows the trail with her eyes, her heart racing faster. No one had come. No one but her team. Yet these tracks, they didn't belong to any of them. The earth beneath her feet still holds their prints, but these are different. The whisper continues. You were never truly abandoned. Jara's legs turn to jelly as she realizes she isn't alone. Someone or something is out there, watching, waiting. Alex's boots thudded heavily against the rocky terrain as he trudged through the dust-choked air. He had been part of the backup crew sent to retrieve the surviving members of the mission, a secondary response team meant to assess the situation and clean up the mess left behind by the failed mission. His orders had been clear: retrieve the survivors, report back, and leave. No questions asked, no delays. But something about this mission didn't sit right with him. Unlike the rest of his team, Alex hadn't been willing to abandon the survivors. He hadn't been able to shake the thought that maybe, just maybe, someone had been left behind. There had been whispers among the crew about leaving certain members behind for the greater good of the mission. But Alex wasn't like the others. He was a soldier, yes, but his sense of duty went deeper than protocol. He couldn't just walk away from someone in need, not when he had the power to help. He reached the wreckage site, the twisted remains of what had once been a state-of-the-art ship. The ship's shell had been mangled beyond recognition, its once pristine hull now a crumpled heap of metal and debris. Yet, Alex's eyes immediately darted to the signs of something no one else had noticed. The faint scratches in the dust, the disturbed rocks scattered around the wreckage. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there. Someone had been here after the crash. Someone had been alive long after the crew had reported the mission as a failure. Captain, one of the other crew members called from behind him. We've done the sweep. There's nothing left. Alex didn't respond at first. He knew. His team didn't get it. They had already written the mission off as a failure. Their eyes were trained to see only the facts, the cold, hard reality. But Alex wasn't like that. He had always trusted his instincts, and right now they were screaming at him. He knelt beside the wreckage, his gloved hands sifting through the debris carefully. He was looking for something that didn't quite belong, something that hadn't been noticed. As his fingers brushed against a tangle of metal, his hand came across a small, damaged piece of equipment, an emergency beacon, badly crushed but still functional. His heart skipped a beat. This was something no one else had picked up on. The beacon had been activated recently too. It was faint, but the signal was still there, a cry for help in the form of a blinking red light. Alex's eyes widened. This was proof. Someone had survived and they were still alive, still hoping for a rescue. He stood up and turned to face his crew. We're not done here, he said, his voice steady but firm. There's someone still out there. We're going to find them. Others stared at him as though he had lost his mind. Sir, we've checked everything. There's nothing left. The mission's over, one of them protested. We need to get back to base before the storm hits. But Alex's eyes were hard, unwavering. We're not leaving. Not yet. He glanced back at the wreckage, his mind racing. Whoever had activated the beacon had left a trail, a series of faint clues that would lead him to them. He followed the signal, his crew reluctantly trailing behind. Every step felt like it was taking him further into the unknown. The wind howled, sending sand and dust swirling around them. The air was thick with the stench of the alien planet, a mixture of sulfur and decay. But Alex was undeterred. He had seen something no one else had, the truth, a truth that was hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered. As they moved deeper into the alien terrain, Alex's mind raced. Who had been left behind? What had happened to them? And why had the others ignored the signs? It was almost as though they were willing to let someone else die for the sake of their mission. But Alex couldn't ignore the signs. He refused to turn his back on someone in need. Hours passed, the landscape around them growing more desolate and barren with each step. The sand beneath their boots turned to hard rock, and the wind carried an eerie, mournful sound across the plains. Alex's eyes never left the path ahead. He was getting closer. He could feel it. The signal was growing stronger, and the trail more distinct. But the further they went, the more dangerous the journey became. Suddenly there was a noise in the distance, a faint, unmistakable sound. A voice. Alex's heart skipped a beat. He wasn't imagining things. Someone was out there. Someone was calling to him. The voice echoed through the wind, a whisper that cut through the howling gale. "Help, please." Alex's breath caught in his throat. It was the voice of a woman, weak, desperate. It came from the direction of a massive rock formation, hidden away in a distant ravine. Without thinking, Alex broke into a run. His crew shouted after him, but he was already too far ahead. The voice, the beacon, the trail, it was all leading him to one person, Jara, the alien survivor. The crew hesitated, but Alex didn't care. He had seen something the others couldn't, a person in need, a life worth saving. It wasn't just about a mission anymore. It was about doing what was right. And he was going to find Jara no matter what it took. The ground beneath his feet shifted, but Alex kept running. He could hear the voice again, growing fainter with every passing second. He wasn't going to let her down. The others had walked away. But Alex wasn't like them. He could see what they didn't. He could see the truth. And that truth was calling him. As he reached the edge of the ravine, Alex's heart stopped. There, lying on the ground, weak and unconscious, was Jara, the alien woman. She had been abandoned by her own kind, left to die. But Alex had found her. And now, he was going to save her. He dropped to his knees beside her, his fingers trembling as he checked for a pulse. She was alive. Barely. Alex's heart surged with relief. He had found her. He had done what no one else would do. And in that moment he realized that this wasn't just a rescue mission. It was a turning point, a moment that would change both their fates forever. Jara's eyes fluttered open, and she gasped for air. She looked at him, confusion clouding her face. And then as their eyes met, Alex whispered, "You're safe now." The human had done what no one else could. He had seen the truth. The wind howled across the alien landscape, carrying with it the bitter chill of an impending storm. The jagged rocks around them seemed to tower like ancient silent sentinels, watching as Alex carefully adjusted Jara's position on the makeshift stretcher he had crafted from the remnants of the wrecked ship. She had regained consciousness, but was still weak, her alien body struggling to recover from the ordeal. Blood stained the fabric of her clothes, a clear sign of the physical toll her body had taken. Alex's breath came in short, heavy gasps. His body was exhausted, his muscles aching from the effort of carrying her through the harsh terrain. Yet, despite the physical exhaustion, he couldn't stop now. They were running out of time. The planet was unstable, and the storm he had been warned about was growing closer. They needed to find shelter, and fast. He looked down at Jara, who was trying to focus on him, but her eyes were cloudy with pain. She hadn't spoken much since he found her, but her occasional glances told him everything he needed to know. She was terrified. She had been abandoned by her own kind, left to die in this desolate wasteland, and now here she was, depending on a human to save her. But Alex wasn't just trying to survive. He was trying to save them both. even though the odds seemed stacked against them. "Stay with me, Jara," Alex said, his voice softer than he intended. "We'll get out of here, I promise." She nodded weakly, but it was clear she didn't believe him. Her faith in her survival had been crushed long ago, buried under the weight of betrayal. Her alien eyes flickered between the storm clouds, gathering overhead in Alex's face as if deciding whether to trust him. They continued to move forward, though every step felt heavier than the last. The landscape had changed, becoming more rugged and treacherous. The air was thick with dust, making it difficult to breathe, and the ground was uneven, riddled with cracks and sudden drops. But Alex kept his focus, pushing through the exhaustion, his mind constantly scanning their surroundings. If they didn't find shelter soon, the storm would catch them, and that would be the end. A sudden noise from behind him broke his concentration. Alex whirled around, heart pounding in his chest, expecting to see some wild creature emerging from the shadows. But there was nothing. The landscape was still. Too still. He couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't alone. Turning back to Jara, Alex adjusted the stretcher, his pace quickening. He couldn't afford to let his guard down. He had to keep moving. The storm wasn't just a weather event. It was a warning. A warning that something even worse was coming. Jara's weak voice broke through his thoughts. "You should leave me," she whispered, barely audible. "You've done enough. I am already dead." Alex stopped in his tracks, looking down at her. Her words hit him like a punch to the gut. He could see the pain in her eyes, the resignation. She had given up, and for a moment, Alex felt the weight of that decision. But he wasn't going to give up on her. Not now. "No," he said firmly, his voice unwavering. "You're not dead. You're alive, and as long as I'm here, you're going to stay that way." She closed her eyes, her breath shallow as she tried to process his words. "Why?" she asked softly, her voice tinged with disbelief. "Why would you help me? Your people would have left me to die. My people. They did. What makes me so special?" Alex's grip on the stretcher tightened as he began walking again. He couldn't stop for too long, not while the storm loomed, but her question lingered in his mind. What made her so special? He didn't know. He had never stopped to think about it. He had simply seen a life in need of saving, and that had been enough. He wasn't like the others who had turned their backs on her. "You're not just some alien, Jara," Alex said, his voice steady. "You're a person, and no one deserves to be left behind. Not like that. Not by anyone." They moved in silence. For a while, the wind howling around them like an ominous warning. The storm was getting closer, and Alex could feel the temperature dropping. The ground beneath his feet was becoming more unstable, the rocky terrain giving way to sudden drops and sharp turns. He cursed under his breath as the path ahead seemed to narrow, the jagged rocks forming a deadly maze. Alex was getting tired. His legs ached, his muscles screamed for rest, but he couldn't stop. Not now. Not when they were so close. His eyes scanned the landscape desperately, looking for anything that could offer shelter. And then, just as he was about to give up, he saw it. A small alcove nestled between two towering rock formations. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. "Jara," Alex said, his voice breaking through the heavy silence. "Look, over there, we'll make it." Her eyes flickered weakly toward the alcove, and for the first time Alex saw a spark of hope in them. She didn't say anything, but the small nod she gave him spoke volumes. She was still holding on, still willing to fight. He couldn't let that hope die. With renewed determination, Alex quickened his pace, moving toward the alcove. The storm was getting closer, the wind howling louder, but he didn't care. They had a chance, and he wasn't going to let it slip away. As they reached the shelter, Alex carefully set Jara down, his body shaking with exhaustion. He barely had time to secure their surroundings before the storm hit. The wind picked up with a fury, whipping sand and dust into the air. It was a full-force assault on the senses, the kind of storm that could strip away everything in its path. But they were safe for now. Inside the alcove, at least the worst of the storm couldn't reach them. Jara rested against the rock, her eyes closed, her breath slow but steady. Alex took a moment to gather his thoughts, looking out into the storm, knowing they weren't out of danger yet. But they had made it this far, and that was something. The fight was far from over, but Alex had one thing on his side: the will to keep going, and as long as they were still breathing, they still had a chance. The storm raged outside, its fury battering against the walls of their fragile shelter. The wind howled like a living beast, sending the sand whipping through the air with a deafening roar. Inside the alcove, however, there was silence, a heavy, uneasy silence that hung between them. Alex sat by Jara, his back pressed against the cold stone, his eyes scanning the chaos outside. Every now and then, he glanced at her, watching. As she lay there, her breathing shallow, her body still fragile from the ordeal. They had made it through the worst of the storm, but that didn't mean they were safe. The planet was unstable, and the forces of nature were only one threat they had to face. But for now, the immediate danger was behind them. They had found shelter, they had survived, but the silence weighed heavy. The tension between them, a mixture of fear and uncertainty, lingered. Jara stirred, her alien eyes fluttering open. She looked at Alex, confusion still clouding her face. She had been through so much, and yet in this moment, she looked like she wasn't sure whether to trust him or the harsh reality that had been her life until now. He could see the walls she had built around herself, the ones forged by years of betrayal and abandonment. And now here she was, invulnerable, fragile, and in need of help. The person who had rescued her was a human, someone she had no reason to trust, and yet she felt something else, a strange feeling of safety that she hadn't felt in a long time. Are you still with me?" Alex asked, his voice low, almost uncertain. Jara nodded weakly, but her eyes remained distant. She wasn't ready to believe it yet, that someone, a human, had actually chosen to save her, an alien. She had been abandoned by her people, left to perish on a dying world. Yet Alex hadn't turned his back. He had chosen to stay, to fight for her life. And in that act, he had offered her something far greater than physical survival. He had given her the possibility of trust again. And that for Jara was both a blessing and a curse. Alex's voice broke through her thoughts again. "Jara," he said softly, "we can leave. We can go back to the transport ship and get out of here. But you need to decide." Jara's eyes met his then, and Alex could see the inner turmoil within her. She was struggling with the choice, and for a moment, it seemed as though she was going to say no. Her gaze turned to the windswept landscape outside, to the vast emptiness of the planet that had taken so much from her. It seemed like a lifetime ago that she had first set foot on this world, eager to prove herself as a scientist, to make a name for her people. But that dream had been shattered, and now there was only pain and memories of abandonment. "I don't know if I can do it," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I don't know if I can leave. My people, they left. Me here to die. I'm alone, always alone." The words hit Alex like a physical blow. He didn't know what to say at first. There was so much he wanted to tell her, about how he understood the pain of abandonment, how he knew what it felt like to be left behind. But instead of speaking, he simply reached out, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. It was a gesture of comfort, of understanding. "You're not alone," he said, his voice filled with a quiet determination. "You don't have to be. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. Not until you're safe." Jara closed her eyes, letting the warmth of his words wash over her. For a long time she had been unable to trust anyone, not after everything she had been through. But Alex wasn't like the others. He had seen her as a person, not just an alien. He had fought for her when no one else would. And now, as she lay there, her body weak but her spirit slowly rising, she realized something. She had a choice. She could let the bitterness of her past define her, or she could start anew. With Alex, she saw the possibility of something different. A chance at redemption, a chance to rebuild herself. "Okay," she said, her voice barely a whisper. I'll go with you. I'll try. Alex's heart swelled with relief. We'll make it, he said, his hand still resting on her shoulder. We'll make it out of here together. The moment seemed to stretch, as if the entire universe held its breath. And then, as if in response to their decision, the storm outside began to subside. The winds weakened, the sky slowly clearing, and a faint light broke through the dark clouds. It was as if the planet itself was granting them a second chance, a new beginning. With Alex's help, Jara slowly rose to her feet. Her body was still weak, but the fire inside her was starting to rekindle. She had been broken once, but this time, she wasn't going to let it defeat her. They still had a long journey ahead of them. The danger wasn't over, and the planet's instability was still a threat. But for the first time since the crash, Jara felt hope stir within her. Together, they made their way out of the alcove, the storm now a distant memory. The path ahead was treacherous, but they would face it together. And as they walked toward the distant transport ship, the ruins of the planet behind them, Jara realized that she had found something far more important than escape. She had found a new beginning, a chance at survival, yes, but also a chance to trust again, to heal and to move forward. Alex had given her that gift, and in doing so, he had changed her life forever. As they reached the ship, Jara turned to him, a faint smile playing at the corners of her lips. "Thank you," she said, her voice filled with sincerity. Alex nodded, offering her a smile in return. "No need to thank me. We're in this together." And as they boarded the ship and took off into the stars, leaving the ruined planet behind, Jara knew one thing for sure. No matter what came next, she wouldn't be alone again. And that was the greatest gift of all.